Hi, this is Pam Holt. This is Inside B&B Live, and I am so excited today to have Amylee Silva join me. She is the creator and founder of SEO is My Happy, and this is super important. She's got some information that I've heard no one talk about. She's from Portugal. She's got a place in Portugal, and she lives also in Toronto. Where in Portugal she gives tours through Airbnb. She specializes in ways that I can't even imagine, and SEO optimization. She's helped me a lot, and she's got some really interesting things to say about increasing your ranking through Airbnb. And so, of course, for hosts, that's what we want to hear about. But she's talking about it in a way that I've never heard this before. So I'm going to bring her on because I know she's here and I want to get started. So let me find her quickly. Oh, there she is. Hey, Karen, how are you? Hi, Stace. Oh, there you are. Hi, Emily. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I just want to start off by saying it's Emily. I'm not saying your name wrong, so in case anybody is wondering, um, thanks for joining today.
Thank you for having me.
I had a little brief introduction, but I want you to tell us about you, and I want you to tell me some of the stories share some of the stories that you've shared with me about how you sort of discovered what it is you do now with rankings and Airbnb. So let's start at the beginning, and let's hear what you got to say.
All right. Sounds good. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Emily. I know it's spelled in a very weird and interesting way, but I am an experience host for Airbnb. I've been on the platform personally as a traveler since 2012, and then I started my experience 3 years ago, so in 2017.
So your experience, is that the walking tours that you give?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. So anybody who doesn't know who's listening, Airbnb is obviously for travelers and hosts, but they also have these online experiences where people who don't necessarily host a space can share a cooking lesson, or in your case, a walking tour or a karate lesson, all kinds of things. And most recently, I'm not sure how you adopted to this, so you have to adapt it. You have to tell us. They moved a lot of those experiences online for reasons of COVID, obviously. So go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I didn't realize that some home hosts might not know about us, Experience Host. So we're the complimentary offshoot to the Airbnb homes. We're a new division that kind of got started, and just I'm saying we, but I don't work for Airbnb. Just I'm an
Right.
contractor, just like everybody else, or just like everyone else on the platform. But I always like to be inclusive and kind of say we. But that's what we are. We run tours, we run experiences, and we complement the homes host. Because essentially, I guess what started happening was people were booking homes and then wanted to do things and
Right.
in the area, and then really wanted to use locals like us to provide those experiences as well. So I got started on the experience platform 3 years ago, as I said, and when so I live between Toronto and Portugal, so
That's
Canada,
pretty cool.
as you said, and I knew moving over that I was going to become an experience host. Like I knew that I wasn't going to apply for a job; I was going to set up a business, and that business was an experience. So that's essentially what I did. Luckily for me, the platform of Portugal was opening when I moved over, and I was one of the first people to add an experience outside of Lisbon and Porto, the two cities that they were hosting. And I've spent over 15 years in tourism, and so once I was on the Airbnb platform, I knew that I wanted to create a complimentary website, so a blog, to help promote
Okay.
and promote my experience. And that's what I started working on. As I started working on the website, I started getting into this little thing called SEO, which always scared me. It always seemed like it was so tech driven. And even though I'm tech
Right.
savvy, I was like, oh, I don't want to get into this. This is probably above my head. And somehow I fell down the rabbit hole. So for the last 3 years, as I was developing and designing the website, I was starting to study SEO, and it started intriguing me more and more. And essentially, what I caught on to was I don't even know, conversations with myself and my brain. And one day I asked myself, I'm like, well, if I'm making all these changes on my website, and Airbnb is a website just like mine, and my experience exists on that website just like anything else, could I not apply some of these SEO techniques to my experience page to help optimize it so I could get more views? I live in a pretty famous beach town in Nazaré, in Portugal, called Nazaré, but it's a small beach town and a lot of people don't know about us. So I was really trying to get as many page views as possible so I could convert more sales and fill my tours. So I was essentially trying to squeeze out any technique that I could. And so that's what I did. I kind of stumbled upon it. I applied SEO techniques that I was using on my website to optimize my blog posts, and I started using the same techniques on my actual listing. And
Okay,
this,
let's slow this down a second because you've said a lot of stuff, and for folks who aren't, into the story already, let me just slow it down for them. So you've decided to become an experienced host. You're going to do these tours. Is that what it was? Okay. So you decide to do a separate blog post, host a website with a blog on it, so that you can maximize exposure for the tours. And so then as a way, you come up with, I don't know if dreamt this or whatever, because this wouldn't have come to me, let me assure you. You come up with a way to view Airbnb as sort of a search engine, is how I understand it. And so in the way that you can optimize any search engine, you've decided to optimize your blog page, post,
my list.
blog on your website to maximize exposure so that you can get more views and more people joining your experience. Is
Yes.
that okay?
So essentially, the techniques I was using to optimize my website, I decided one day to try and use those same techniques on my listing. Because as hosts, we don't have
Okay.
access to our listings. We only have the areas that they allow us to input. So so you don't have all of like the 25 steps that you could do to optimize a blog post if you're the owner of a website. But we had access to quite a few, which is what I discovered. And so I started playing around. I started inputting keywords into my description. I started implementing
On Airbnb.
on Airbnb in my
Okay.
description. And then I started optimizing my photos as well and including keywords into my photos. And as I said a little bit earlier, the results were amazing. After I optimized my photos for my experience, within 2 weeks, my photo and my experience on Airbnb was ranking in Google Images in the first two lines. So
Oh, wow.
one of my photos that I feature for my experience, I optimized it, and then I went on to Google and just kind of did a search. And I was like, oh, I want to see if this is going to work. I put in the keyword that I was going after, which happened to be Nazaré Beach, and boom! In the first two lines, there was my photo that I took. That's on my Airbnb listing, and just below at Airbnb.ca, I clicked on it, and it opened directly to my experience page. And that was my first aha moment. I was like, oh.
Wow. Wow. Well, so I don't know if any hosts have tried this, but if I were to go in and try and search for my Airbnb listing, it's not coming up in the Google rankings for sure. So all you did for that first trial was to optimize the photo,
I optimized the names of the photos. So
the
the
names of the photos.
trick is Airbnb in their guidelines, best practice guidelines, they recommend that you add captions. And what I actually discovered working with you was that that was actually not enough. You needed to upload the image with a proper image name, and then that's how you get it to rank.
Ah, that is golden. That is golden. So, just again, because, I need this broken down. Maybe it's just me, but anyway. So when you are naming a photo, if you've taken a photo yourself or whatever, instead of having the numbers and whatever .jpeg, you name it, and so you name it with keywords that are going to help optimize, right? So in my case, it would be whatever Chicago. It might be Chicago hyphen McCormick Place hyphen conference or something like that. And that's the name of the photo now. That's where it sits on your computer with that name. So when you then upload it onto Airbnb site, with its name, That's what is ranking. That's what's pulling you in the Google rankings. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, not the keywords,
It's
not the caption.
So the caption helps as well, but the key is renaming the photo. And what happens is, as you just mentioned, with a lot of us will download our photos from our phones or from our SD drive, like the cards from our cameras, and they get saved, as you said, image-123.jpg.
Right.
When you upload a file like that to the internet, to Google or to your Airbnb Experience page, that's what you're telling that reader, that website, what that image is called. But that doesn't mean anything to anybody. Image one,
Right.
three doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Name the image. If you name the image for your scenario here, full home rental Chicago, something like that.
Okay.
You're going to have to research the keywords a little bit more to see if there's actually any volume against them. But if you start renaming your images to, downtown Chicago apartment, then there's an opportunity for you to actually rank for that photo to appear in a search for anyone who's looking for a downtown Chicago apartment. And then they're
Mm,
going to enter it from there. And then the searcher is going to kind of find it there and then do their own search and click and go down their own rabbit hole, so to speak. But if you leave the image called image 123, there's no chance that your photo for a Chicago apartment downtown is going to rank.
So, did you split test it with the captions? Is that how do you know the captions don't work as well?
Because when I did a test on a recent client, I was checking the alt image, so the alt tags, which is what this is called, renaming the photo.
Mm.
And I noticed that they had captions, but when I did the test, the alt images were still missing. And then that's when I realized that the final click for this to work on the Airbnb listing platform was to actually change the name of the file, and then everything was captured, and then the photo would be able to rank, and the alt text wouldn't be missing.
Wow. Okay. So, are we also then, or do we even need to at this point? Um, do we need to do the keywords inside our descriptions, or uh, is that even helping at this point?
Yes, definitely. You still want the captions there, so it's kind of twofold. One is the trigger, but the captions is what most people are going to see. So remember, the alt text, this type of coding that I'm talking about, is what the computer reads, is what the search engines crawl. That's what they see. They see the name of the image. We, as the end user, don't. So to mimic what the title or the name of the photo is, and then
Mm,
add to the caption, we'll just strengthen that signal of the
got
keyword
it.
to go after and how you're trying to rank.
Got it. Got it. Karen says she's going to check up on her SEO guys and see if he's made these changes. Yeah, she should. Okay. That's kind of unbelievable because that's a really easy fix that that even I could do. I can rename my photos. So what kind of you were sharing a story with me before on how that made the difference between even how you searched, how in your search for your town, the different keywords and how it made a difference with that. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So one thing I also did was, and I always recommend this for hosts and experienced hosts as well, is to kind of, before you start doing any keyword research, is really understanding where your customer is coming from, because just in the English language alone, even between you and I, me as a Canadian and you as an American, we speak the same language, but we write words in different manners. In English, or Canadian English, which is more conforming to British English,
Mm-hmm.
or S's instead of the letter Z or Z. And those are the types of decisions that you want to make beforehand, because
Oh,
yeah, and so for me, it's really unique because my walking tour is in Portugal, but I don't actually run my tour in Portuguese. I cater to English speakers.
mm,
The town that I'm in, called Nazaré, actually has an accent above the E, and I've made a conscious decision not to spell the word that way, because English speakers like us don't know how to use accents where it's not, we don't
right.
have English language. So I made a conscious decision to not include them, because anyone who, statistically at the time when I started, anyone who knew about the accent would be a local speaker, so Portuguese or maybe native Spain. And I wouldn't be able to cater to them. I wouldn't be able to offer a service to them because I don't actually run my tour in Portuguese or Spanish.
Mm.
So those are just kind of decisions that I made beforehand when I was looking at the rest of the copy that was actually built into the description of my tour. And then another way I started optimizing descriptions was, okay, once I had decided on what I call like the hierarchy keyword, my main keyword that I'm going after for, which is the town in Portugal.
Mm.
And I started looking for other keywords that I could fill in the space with. And this is perfect for homes host because you have your surrounding areas. You might have convention centers or historical sites that are around you. And those can be keywords, people looking for a specific convention center to be close by, to rent a home or to rent an apartment by, or maybe they want to be by a specific landmark. So if your listing or your experience walks by a specific landmark, then you want to include that keyword into the description as well, because that will be another opportunity for people to find you. So
Okay. So is that in the headline? Is it in the body? Does it matter?
what I was just speaking about right now was actually in the description, so it's in the main body that you get
Hmm.
to add, you know, all of your fun copy in about describing your home or describing your experience. The
Right.
title is something that's a bit different, but thank you for the segue because I can talk about that. Because there's two ways to approach your title, so your listing.
Okay.
So for us, experience hosts, it's the name of our tour or our experience. And for homes hosts, it could either be the name that you've given your apartment or home. Some people like to name their list.
Hmm.
You know, I think mine was called Sleepy Beach Town. I did have a listing on Airbnb for a while, but I've got a long-term renter in. So I had called it Sleepy Beach Town, Portugal. And so when it comes to your name, there's really two approaches. And I find the one, if you can have your keyword in there, brilliant, you do.
Mm.
But
Okay.
caution you not to have the keyword in your title if it makes it sound boring. Because what matters
Okay. Good one.
makes it sound very lackluster, then I
Yes.
recommend putting the very, it's usually very, keywords can be kind of boring actually because they're very specific, There's not a lot of fluffy words around them.
Hmm.
And what matters in regards to your listing name or my experience name is that it's a clickable title, that it's exciting, that somebody wants to click on it and read more. So that's the only time that I would recommend foregoing a keyword in the title is if it makes it sound boring and it's a
Okay.
clickable title. Another reason why you might um, want to include a keyword in the opposite was, and the best example I have of this is in Portugal, we have this beautiful magical area called the Serra da Estrela, which is a nice hiking area. It's the highest peaks that we have, mountain range. And there are these very famous goat herders, sheep
Okay.
and sheep herders as well up there. And they herd the sheep and they make this amazing cheese. So I know about this because I'm Portuguese, and I came across an experience host was that had this as a tour where you could walk with one of the sheep herders and get
Oh, nice.
the area and the cheese. And for me, I'm like, I 100% do this. I know all about this. This is so cool. These people like live at the top. They like walk 8 hours a day to get there. It's such a unique experience. But
Cool.
she was struggling with people getting to click onto her experience and kind of drawing in that attention. So if you have a very obscure area or a very obscure, it's not necessarily obscure, but maybe it's obscure to travelers or foreigners,
Hmm.
then you might want to choose a keyword that speaks to the general area. So what I had recommended in this scenario, instead of calling it, walk with a sheep herder, maybe promoting the actual area, said the Strilla, which would be more common and would be more known for. And that's
Okay.
traffic. So your title is also kind of strategic, but yeah, you want to make sure that it's clickable. So
That's a lot of stress trying to get that right. Because it's a make or break kind of situation. So you really do. I think for myself, I've had to play around and do, a handful of different titles and see and try to figure out, which one draws better. And I change them on a regular basis because I'm always feeling kind of insecure about, whether the title is the reason that I'm, not fully occupied because who knows, Who knows? You know. So,
Yeah, it's hard. You do you have to be willing to tweak things, play around with things, experiment a little bit. But you also have to let SEO. You need to give SEO a chance to work as well. Because sometimes it can take 3 to 6 months,
oh,
up to a year, depending on the keyword that you select and the competition that's out there. So
okay.
I usually tell people that I work with, you can either be patient or you can pay.
I think that might be the case with a lot of things.
Yeah, you can always jumpstart things by paying for an ad. That's for sure.
So I know, rumor has it that you have a course in the works that teaches folks about SEO. How would hosts benefit from a course with you?
Oh, thank you. Definitely hosts with complimentary websites for this kind of launch that I'm doing would benefit because I'm essentially helping people turn their website from liabilities
Mm,
to assets. And
okay.
what's happening? We end up having these complimentary websites to promote our businesses or to promote our listings, and we blog, and sometimes maybe we're not consistent, and we've got a couple of pages going, and we end up looking at our websites as I said, as a liability, as just somewhere that we're kind of losing money on. We're not sure how to size and kind of get our return on investment on. So I did a massive overhaul on my personal blog, and that's when I really started to see the power of SEO. And then when I mimicked that and replicated it onto my Airbnb listing page, it just started growing even more tenfold.
Mm.
And so that's essentially where the course is headed. It's really going to show you how to optimize your website, how to optimize your listing, so that both work hand in hand. And as I said, you can, you know, you have that saying: if you write it, they'll read it, or if you build it, they will come. But that's
Mm.
not your website isn't optimized.
Yeah, right. That found that out the lonely hard way.
Yeah.
But for those people like myself, I'm going to take your course, and I'm gonna learn this. But for those of us who need to pay, can you help us too? Can we get this going, and then maybe learn about it later once we have some traffic going, and maybe generate some income?
Definitely, 100%. I do work with clients one on one and even my approach for working with clients one on one, I love explaining what I'm doing, the reasoning behind what I'm doing. Because the one thing I found is keyword research and optimizing your website can really set up your future. Because oftentimes what we struggle with is consistency in writing posts or writing copy just in general, even just your description for your listing the first time, you were probably struggling.
Right,
So I,
right.
so I say,
Yes.
and I find that the keywords and doing keyword research in advance, knowing exactly what people are looking for and knowing how many people are searching for that term on a month-to-month basis is very motivating to create copy and more content around, because you're not going to create a post, or you're not going to create a listing that nobody is searching for. And if I could be so bold, Pam, we have an example together with one of your articles, and it's mind blowing how small these details are.
Oh,
Your tiny space, big style article, which who wouldn't think that tiny space wouldn't be a keyword term? But as we found together, there was zero people looking for space.
right.
Big.
Welcome to my world.
Quickest tweak that we did was we changed that to small space, big,
Right.
and all of a sudden 390 people were searching that term. And then to take it even one step further, small spaces, just with the addition of the letter S, pluralizing spaces, dropped the traffic from 390 to 170 per month.
See,
And so
this is amazing to me. This is amazing. And I would have never thought twice about this. I would have just felt lonely. That's it. But when you showed me that, I was like, It's a whole new world. And maybe I should have already known more about this, but I didn't. So it was really eye-opening. And I really do agree with what you're saying about the keywords now, because now I'm not going to waste a bunch of time, writing a bunch of stuff that maybe only I find interesting. Nobody else is searching for it. I know exactly what I can build my content around. And that goes for, blog posts. It goes for, it's the same stuff I can use on social. It is, I'm not, it's such a aid. I'm not just struggling trying to come up with topics that, apparently nobody's searching for. So that was great.
Yeah, it's so it's as you said, you said maybe you should have known this. I don't know if you should. Like as a small business owner, you're moving 100 miles a minute. You've got 20 other things on your plate at once, and things that we probably feel are more important, like maybe taxation and pricing and all of this.
Right. Paying the bills.
So
Literally.
like that. So it's so common to see SEO just constantly on the to-do list that just never gets checked off because it comes across as really overwhelming. And I approach it from a words perspective. I don't look at it from a tech perspective. I look at it from my love of words, my love of reading, and I'm like, oh, okay, if I drop that S, if I take away that comma, if I take away that hyphen, this is now a keyword, and there's a chance that people are going to find me and they're actually going to read my article while still keeping my content intact, right? Like I still wrote,
Right.
and then I'm just going back and just optimizing it for computer as well so that it can be found. So
Yeah. Well, the difference between tiny and small, they seem synonymous. I mean, they're synonyms, but all the difference in the world. So you learn, you live and you learn, right? So now I know. Okay, this has been great. This was so helpful for me and my business, and I hope people watching find the same because the small little tweaks are going to make a world difference, and not just a difference in an intangible way, but a dollar sign bottom line difference, which is what we're all looking for. So, how can people reach you for more help in their businesses?
you can find me here on Instagram. I'm doing my best to be more consistent here as well. This is going to be the ongoing word and phrase for the rest of 2020 for me. Um,
Okay,
so Emily or Amylee underscore Silva is my Instagram handle, but you can also find me at SEO is my happy.
love that. Love
Inspired
that.
World T-shirt. So
Ah, cute, very cute. I love it. I really appreciate everything you've done for me. It's been amazing. I've loved working with you. I wish you could just hang around and, optimize my whole world. I don't know, is that possible? And I suggest that guests, that hosts that are watching, contact you and just have you run through like you did with me. Everything. Do kind of an audit and see the best ways to maximize what you've already done. You might as well. You already did the hard part, at least on your end, and your work just makes it that much more um, visible for people to see. So, thank you. Thanks for today. I have loved talking to you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Wasn't this great? I know it was great. It was great. So, I will see everyone next week. And Emily, I'll be talking to you soon.
exactly.
Bye. Hi, welcome. I'm Pam Holt, and this is Inside B&B. And today I'm very excited to talk to the owner of a really cool online store called Global Addict. I'm going to bring in Cabria Cummings, and she's going to tell us all about why you should incorporate, and there's lots of names for it, tribal luxe, global decor, primitive chic, rustic chic. There's all kinds of different names for it, but essentially it's artifacts and items and collectibles from different parts of the world. And the reason I think it's such a cool idea for short-term rental hosts is because, we're all about travel. And